But it's a fun book. It's a fun book, and some interesting local characters. So everybody knows Jim. He's the director here at USDA, and despite the fact
USDA is federal. I'm an NC State employee.
Oh, really? Well, I didn't know that. And not only that, but he got his PhD from NC State, which is just amazing to me that somebody who writes this well went to NC State.
Hey.
My husband John got his PhD there. I just love to razz these people together. So it's just wonderful to have you here tonight, and we really appreciate it when we all stick it out because we've got classes and we've got 5. So, woo!
Thanks, Betty. Well, thank y'all for coming. And I've got to give Betty some credit too, because in the early stages of putting the story together and actually getting the novel into shape, I had a few people give it a proofread. She graciously agreed to read one of the earlier drafts and help with
With the second Bible.
Well, the sex part a little bit. She's like, you can definitely beef up the relationship between Tucker and Allie. I want to, we need to see more. There needs to be more there. So that was a great suggestion. But again, my name's Jim Hamilton. I'm the extension director here right just up the street. Every county in North Carolina has an extension agency. We're the outreach arm for NC State, and my background is in forestry. Primarily here in my current job as the director, I'm doing more admin stuff these days. But I mainly worked and started my career with extension working in the Christmas tree industry. So there's a nod to that industry in the novel. And also I've been working with ginseng for the last 10 years, and I'll talk a little bit more about how that's sort of evolved. Because what I really talk about in this, it's most people, when I've come to these talks, have either read the book or know a little bit about the book. I'm a teacher and educator by sort of trade and wish and want. So I tried to sneak in as many teaching moments as I could in the novel. And the gentleman who helped me with dialogue, and who's a very prolific novelist who gave me a lot of tips and pointers on developing the story into an actual novel. He'd shake his finger at me when I'd send him drafts, like, tell a story, quit teaching. So I do more teaching in the talks, because the reason that I decided to write the novel is that ginseng has such a very special place in the culture and history of the Appalachian Mountains, from northern Alabama all the way up into the Catskills of New York. It's been an important part of the local economies for really centuries. And like Betty said and mentioned, its story past goes into the 1700s when the American species of ginseng was found in the early 1700s. So Chinese ginseng, or Panax ginseng, has been used in Asia for literally thousands of years. Dynasties sort of rose and fell based on their control of the ginseng trade in Asia. So when Lafitau, who was the French Jesuit who discovered the American plant in outside of Toronto and the Great Lakes with Iroquois, when it became known that there was a companion species to Chinese ginseng, that really started the ginseng rush of the late 1700s. It really kicked up in the mid 1800s and has seen sort of a renaissance of interest that I'll talk about a little later too, over the last couple of decades, because ginseng is it's mentioned in some of George Washington's journals. Historically, Daniel Boone, besides trades and pioneering and everything else, he traded in ginseng. He traded furs, he traded all this other stuff, but ginseng was one of the crops. And there's a little snippet of a story in who wrote the book Boone? I can't remember, but there's a section where Daniel Boone actually lost his the boat that he had the ginseng in capsized in the Ohio River. The ginseng got soaking wet, some of it spoiled, but the plant was so prolific at that time. The rumor story goes, he said, well, let's just hit the woods and dig some more, because at that point the trade was established enough. But again, very historic. And American ginseng, and getting into why it's so important for the export trade, American ginseng, which is Panax cunifolius, is the yin in the yin and yang system of traditional Chinese medicine and Chinese culture. Yang, or Chinese ginseng, Panax ginseng, is heat energy, hot. You take Chinese ginseng in the winter when it's really cold or you have chills, you'll take Panax ginseng tea or consume it in some fashion. Whereas American ginseng, the complement, the yin ginseng, is cool ginseng. You take American ginseng in the summertime when you're really hot, but you need a pick-me-up. And it's used for any number of other medical maladies in traditional Chinese medicine and in some modern Chinese medicine, and modern medicine. It's supposed to be sort of a blood thinner. It's supposed to help with blood sugar, help with weight control, with energy. It's been used and prescribed for a lot of different things in sort of the holistic medicine and homeopathic medicine. But a majority of, probably 99% of all of the wild ginseng that's harvested and has been harvested for centuries in our mountains is exported to Asia because it is consumed there. It's consumed there like we consume coffee, like we consume chocolate. Ginseng is consumed in Asia. There's a number of recipes. There's food dishes that include ginseng. It's especially given during the Chinese New Year as a gift. It's given for wealth. It's what you present to your future father-in-law at the wedding. It's what you use to bribe the planning official that needs to sign off on your apartment complex in Beijing. It is treated as a sacred product because wild ginseng is practically extinct in China. Most of the ginseng that's consumed, that's in all the energy drinks that you see, you'll see ginseng as a lower ingredient in some of the iced tea products, the energy drinks, those little yellow jacket trucker pills that you see at the speedways and Circle K's that say they have ginseng. Most of that is farm-grown ginseng. And farm-grown ginseng we still produce a lot of that in North America, primarily from one specific county in Wisconsin, Wausau County. Marathon County. Wausau is the name of the town where a lot of the industry folks go, and then in Ontario. And that ginseng sells for anywhere from $40 to $80 a pound because it is quickly grown. It's grown in 4 years. It's heavily fertilized, a lot of chemical treatments. Ginseng just does not grow as densely in the wild as it does in these farm-raised environments, and the quality of the ginseng is different. American ginseng, right now, today, the current price of ginseng is on average about $850 a pound, which is why it is sort of the Godzilla or the King Kong of the medicinal herb world because of its export price. There are the Asian population that lives here domestically in LA, New York, Atlanta, Charlotte. They'll come visit the mountains to a couple of local buyers, especially the Koreans, to buy fresh ginseng. Koreans prefer to consume it green or fresh. They have special humidifying refrigerators that they keep their ginseng in to keep it fresh for several months. Whereas the Chinese tend to consume it dry. They purchase it dry. They'll powder it for medicine. They'll reconstitute it in hot water for other for teas and other things. But there's still a very large market, and that's where our ginseng has gone forever. Now, this particular area, we happen to be in one of the most biologically diverse forest ecoregions in North America, the Appalachian chain, and we have the perfect environment for this plant to grow. It's a very cryptic, a very small plant. I've got one in a frame here.
You all know where that sign is, right? Yep. Okay.
Yeah, that's the one. It's right catty corner to the Mellow Mushroom on King Street. But I want to pass that around. This is the plant, and this is the root. And this is a fairly valuable root. This particular root is about 30 plus years old, and you can actually count the number of neck scars that emerge from the root. Ginseng's a perennial plant, so it comes up every year, and this time of year it falls. Well, every spring a new bud comes out, it forms a new top. And every time that the top falls, it leaves a little scar on the neck. And usually the formula is generally 1 inch of neck length equals about 10 years of growth. And you can actually, if you got real close with a magnifying glass, you could count the individual neck scars. So that's an example. So it's a very discreet, little cryptic, low-growing plant in the forest that an entire industry revolved around. Wilcox Drug, which was formally established in 1910, the family had been buying herbs for years and years. They became one of the largest medicinal herb consolidators on the East Coast, probably in the United States. And it stayed in business for around 90 years, or around 80 years, until a Swiss botanical firm bought Wilcox and eventually sort of dissolved it. So the Wilcox Emporium, where Kobo's sushi place and the local, that used to be a medicinal herb clearinghouse or warehouse. Really, really neat. And if you can see from this early map, so this is a map from 1840. So this map was before Watauga County was actually a county. I think Watauga County became an official county in 49. Sometime in the decade of the 40s and 50s. We were, right around here. We were a combination of, they made Watauga out of a combination of Yancey, Wilkes, Caldwell, and Burke, or not Burke, maybe Barber, and Ash. We were right here, but if you look at this, and this is in $1840, we were, there were up to $20,000 worth of herbs being sold in our region in 1840.
Wow.
And ginseng became even more important after the Civil War, when the economy had gone to turds, right? The economy had gone to turds. The South was basically a disaster, and a lot of families sustained themselves from not growing herbs, but wild foraging all the different herbs, not just ginseng, but there are a number of different herbs that I'll mention here as well. So again, up and down the Appalachian Mountains, as you can see through East Tennessee, Eastern Kentucky, Southwestern Virginia, all the way up, was a very, very busy, lucrative ginseng trade. And actually, I kind of wanted to share this with you. So the person who put this map together wrote a history book. Now it's nonfiction. It just came out a few months ago. It's called Ginseng Diggers. And just to kind of explain how important ginseng and other medicinal crops were during this period of time, he pored over, he would go to old general stores, grab the old ledgers from the 1800s, and he would comb through all these ledgers and find sales and trade, what people were trading for ginseng, how much ginseng was coming in. And he did 10 years worth of research to put together this book. But the opening line of the book, which is why I ended up getting it, Henry Webb scanned the ground for plants among the forested mountainsides surrounding the picturesque hamlet of Valley Crucis on the Watauga River. That's the opening line of this book. So it really shows you how important this trade was. And sort of what got me interested in writing this story was to see how active this still is today. A lot of people think that the ginseng trade, unlike the moonshine trade, the ginseng trade is a legal, managed, documented industry. You can get a license from the North Carolina Department of Ag if you want to be a ginseng dealer. There's a legal harvest season. There's specifications on the size and the age of the roots that you can extract. There's legal language in what you need to do with the berries that you find on the plants that you're harvesting. There's a legal sales period that you can sell your ginseng from September 1st really until March 31st. So it's not this illegal black market trade, even though it's been portrayed as that. It's still, but because of the value of the plant, at $850 a pound, and for as small and as diminutive as a plant it is, and the fact that you can, sell a tub of roots like that can fit in the backpack for several hundred to several $1,000s, make it a more sort of under the radar crop. But it's still active. This is one of the dealers that I work with here. Actually, he's the only dealer in the county now. These are some of his roots from during 1 week last season. I've been to his place this season. I haven't got any pictures this season, but there's some buyers will buy the tops. They'll dry the tops, which contain the same ginsemicides or the active ingredient in ginseng. same as the root. So the tops, the roots themselves, they're graded once they're sold and end up in cardboard tubs in Hong Kong. There's 50 different grades of ginseng. It's the way that ginseng is shaped, how old it is, because really and truly the Chinese medicinal belief in it, part of it goes back to the medieval doctrine of signatures that believes that basically states that if you consume something with a human form, that it will treat the ailment pertaining to that human form. And the English term for ginseng in China means man root. Ren Xin means man root. So the most valuable roots actually have the shape of a person, and the more valuable ones are anatomically correct, with all male appendages included. And that's sort of the fact that this plant can live, and ginseng can live for up to 100 plus years in the ground. The fact that you can consume the energy or the ki from this plant that's had to struggle through the cold mountain winters and struggle through the deep clays and rocky soil, the fact that you can consume that, that energy is then transferred to you into whatever may ail you. That's sort of the belief, and that's why the market is so high. Here's some pictures of this is how Wisconsin ginseng, and I actually have a little comparison here. I've got some of my show and tell items up here. So the lighter colored ginseng here in this bag is Canadian ginseng. So if you look at it, you can see they're big, kind of chunky roots, and I'll let you pass those around. And in this bag, you can see these are wild North Carolina roots, and they've been kind of beaten up over the years because I've used this for a lot of talks. So they don't have quite the character that they did have. You can see the size difference. These are much smaller. The age of these roots, before the necks were broken off, ranged anywhere from 10 to 30 plus years. The ginseng in that bag is 4 years old. They harvested in 4 years. You can really see the difference. They're producing a lot. Like I said, this is the stuff that ends up in all the commercial products. But it's not the same value or quality that we've harvested in the mountains. So, and that's
the same price?
What's that?
What's the price difference?
Oh, $40 to $80.
Okay.
In that bag, and those actually had some disease on there. That ginseng was selling for $15 a pound. And that ginseng, when I pulled it out of the bin, was at the time was selling for $900 a pound.
Wow.
Yeah, the dealer only let me grab a little small handful of that stuff for show and tell. And I have some that I'll talk about how all this ties into the book in a minute. But these are part of what I wanted to capture in the novel and what I tell in this story is like ginseng hunting for it's more than about the money. Most people that I know that are ginseng diggers or ginseng growers, they are much more passionate over profit. And when you go to someone who's a serious digger or someone where ginseng hunting is part of their culture, they'll show you their collection, their trophy roots. So just like a deer hunter or a fisherman will put their taxidermied best kill on the wall, a hardcore ginseng digger will take some moonshine and plop their roots. And there's a story that goes with each of these. I could go for 20 minutes on the stories with these because I helped dig these on a friend's property in Virginia. But they'll store it in clear liquor or moonshine. Here's some moonshine. And when I used to do these talks during COVID, everyone else was masked up, and I would pass this around and say, well, if you want to take a tug, this is the most COVID-free sort of show and tell item that I could have, because I think this is about 110 proof. But these roots have been sitting in this shine for about 7 years, and a lot of old timers and other folks who practice Chinese medicine will actually take a dropper and just take a dropper full each day, and that's sort of their the method. It's one way to get the benefit of ginseng from that. But if you pass this around, you can actually smell the earthiness of the ginseng that has been imbued into the alcohol. And you're welcome to take a tug. I've had folks that's why I need to kind of refill it. But you're welcome to smell it and pass that around. Just be careful.
Are you saying that in moonshine?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, the roots are in moonshine. What's moonshine?
What's it?
Corn liquor. It's really a high alcohol corn liquor.
You can get it.
You can get it, actually. Yeah, that's.
But if anything, you store it.
So anyway, it's just, and that's why,
Mind if I put the camera on you?
No.
the story, I've
Okay.
never seen ginseng in any kind of popular pop media. I've never seen ginseng really mentioned in a movie. There's some novels. Ron Rash mentions ginseng sort of briefly in Serena. One of the main characters in Serena is who's just had a baby. She's trying to get some money to trade for some food. But really, there's not a lot of there wasn't any fiction. There's plenty of nonfiction and how-to guides and history books about ginseng. So I wrote the last entry to sort of put together a lot of the different stories and characters that I've gotten to know over the last 20 years working here in Watauga County, and really pay homage to the industry, not just the ginseng industry, but also the Christmas tree industry as well. But like I said, there's a story. These belong to one particular grower, dealer, and digger, and he's had some Chinese and Korean buyers come in and offer him big money for these jars based on the age of the ginseng and because they're preserved in moonshine, and he wouldn't sell them. He doesn't. They're too special to him. The stories behind them mean more than the dollar value. And so for those, and I mentioned some of these in the novel as well. Tucker's grandfather, Paw, was very knowledgeable of all the different plants in the woods. And usually at these talks, I have people ask, "Well, where can it grow? Could I possibly have some growing on my property?" And these are sort of the companion plants, or these are the main companion plants that ginseng grows with. If you have any of these, or if you stumble upon woods that have a good quantity of these particular companion plants, more than likely you have a good site for either growing ginseng, or maybe there's wild ginseng growing there. And sometimes I've seen sites that have all of these companion plants and there's no ginseng, and that just means somebody got it before. It's still very, very valuable, very, very sought after. We have plenty of hardwood forests and poplar woods that also, that grow that are native around here. So those types of hardwood forests are the most common places to find it. Yes,
I was
Mom?
just wondering if you wouldn't mind just reading them for the
Oh,
people
sure.
who are at home.
Sure.
Because I don't think they can see that.
Sure.
list.
Bloodroot is a good one. To me, the top three I would say are Bloodroot, Blue Cohosh, and Maidenhair Fern. Do I even have maiden? I don't have Maidenhair Fern there. Those are the three. If I'm in an area and if I see those three together, ginseng should be there.
And isn't that bloodroot on the bottom of your picture?
Yeah.
Yes, so this is bloodroot, and that's ginseng. Actually, this is very early in the spring, and that's ginseng just unfurling from the surface of the ground. That picture was probably taken the last week in April, right before bloodroot starts blooming. And here's some pictures of some of these. This one confuses people a lot. Ginseng in the fall, has a nice ball of red berries. And a lot of folks who hunt ginseng wait until the berries start to turn red so that they can find it more easily in the forest. This is Jack in the Pulpit. When I've hunted ginseng before, you see that off in a distance and you think you found it, and it's really not. But this is black cohosh here on the bottom right. These are ramps. Ramps. You can write another book or story about ramps too. I mentioned ramps in the novel. That's what one of the characters is doing where Tucker finds him. Blue cohosh and of course bloodroot. They call it bloodroot because of the kind of reddish blood red dye that's there. So just the history and culture, and then working with all the people in the community that are engaged in forest farming or trying to either create or maintain some value in their forest lands. I've gotten to meet a lot of folks from ginseng diggers to landowners who have moved, who grew up here, moved away, and have grown back, and they're wanting to try to reestablish a part of their family's heritage on their land by planting some ginseng, because when they were younger, their grandfather or their grandmother took them out in the woods, the first week of September, and it was sort of a family tradition, just like just like some parents take their kids deer hunting to get their first deer, people will remember learning, and going out into the woods the first time with their grandfather and then showing them how to dig ginseng the correct way. For the last, I think it's been 9 years now, I've done workshops in the fall, and I would just keep hearing these stories from different people, different family histories, different digger experiences. The history of this root, that root weighed over a pound. I think he said it cost him just the moonshine alone cost him $700 to preserve it. He was offered $20,000 for that root and didn't sell it because he said, "I'll never see another one that big again." That's me a few years ago doing a workshop in the woods. The ginseng that's in the jar there that's being passed around came from that particular property in the upper right. Had a good time hunting ginseng with a friend. Took him ginseng hunting for the first time on his own property, and his grandfather, who sort of frames the pawpaw figure to me in the novel, ginseng was his grandfather's hobby. He lived in southwestern Virginia, born, raised, lived there. A friend of mine actually left and grew up in Biloxi, Mississippi. But when he moved back to Boone, Rock, his father said, "You need to go up and check on the old home place." Pawpaw's hobby was ginseng, and that was all he did in the fall. He would roam the woods around the property. He would dig root. He would bring root back to the home property and plant it all around the woods surrounding the house. So we went to see, if it was still there, and sure enough, it was the most ginseng I'd ever seen in any one place. The last entry. So getting more kind of into the book side of things, one of the considerations as I was writing it, I'm not from Appalachia. I'm not a mountain boy. I grew up in East Central Alabama. From the highest point in our property, which I think was about 400 feet above sea level, I could see it's a little hanging toenail. The last hanging eroded toenail of the Southern Appalachians is called Hog Mountain. So that's as close to the Appalachians as I grew up. So it was really imperative to me to not to seem that I was, culturally poaching or misrepresenting the mountains and its people. I really did try to get it right. And I was really nervous when the book went out, and some of my colleagues and friends in the ginseng trade, that I knew that they were going to read it, and I was I waited bated breath for feedback to make sure that I got it right. I was really worried then, because some of these folks are pretty brutally honest. If I'd gotten it right, or if I'd gotten it wrong, I'd know it. But getting it right too, I didn't. So I feel like I did that, and you might have noticed. Whoops, that didn't show up there. This is really the setting. So the setting of the book is actually here, if you paid attention, if you read the book, you probably noticed that I didn't mention a town by any name. I think I mentioned Charlotte, but other than that, there's not a particular town. Because really, the story comes from an amalgamation of different characters and places that I've traveled, working with different people from multiple counties in the area. And I also wanted to make the story, capture kind of the sentiment for anybody from Southeast Kentucky or Southwest Virginia or Eastern Tennessee who was also involved in the industry and do something to not to claim the place, too much in the novel. But someone asked me where was is that Mass General Store? I was like, really and truly, that when I thought about the general store in the novel, it was the old Todd General Store, was just burned down not too long ago. But I think Boone too, as a town, sort of is a good. There's good context for how the mountains have been changing and are changing over the years. We have such a diverse population now as far as place of origin. So, like I said, I'm not from the mountains. I've lived here for almost 20 years. My kids were born here. even they won't be athletic. They won't be mountain kids. You got to go back 8 generations and have a whole family killing and a rivalry and belong to a certain set of last names to be from here. But truly, this county is sort of that snapshot of the burgeoning diversity that's happened over the last 20 years. Ginseng hunters used to not have to worry about purple paint or no trespassing signs or gated communities. The mountains were the commons. If you lived in the mountains and a neighbor needed to shoot a couple squirrels or dig a few roots to sell, property was just something that everybody used. The folks here were land rich and cash poor, and the land was this sort of limitless resource that you could rely on. And I mentioned in the book, the woods were an endless apothecary. Even 50 years ago, 100 years ago, there wasn't a Walgreens and a CVS on every corner. If you had a case of the hemorrhoids, you had to walk up Witch Hazel Holler and grab you a handful of leaves and take it back, and Granny would make you a poultice to, get that stuff cleaned up. So that's what everyone relied on. So you've seen, and then there are families and communities here that still have those ingrained view of the commons. And the author of Ramp Hollow, does it a lot better. It's another great book that really talks about how the exploitation of Appalachia beyond J.D. Vance's hillbilly elegy. Ramp Hollow is more of a history that delves into just the status of Appalachia and how the history is sort of shaping what it is here. Because there's still families here that use what they dig during ginseng season to help pay for shoes at the beginning of the school season or school year. Helps put Christmas gifts under the tree, just to make sure that some stockings are stuffed. So it's still a very important part here. And I guess one of the reasons that it's a partial inspiration for starting the book and getting me interested. So I've been the extension director here for 13 years, and I was an agent here before for 3, so about 16 years in extension. I would usually get maybe one call a year regarding ginseng. Somebody might call to ask what the price of ginseng was, or somebody might bring a plant in just wondering if they actually had ginseng. And that was all I ever heard about it. Well, in 2012, 2013, the Nat Geo channel and the History Channel came out. There were four different shows that really they portrayed the ginseng trade and hunting ginseng as this overblown, exploited, just hillbilly hobby. That's all it was. There was Appalachian outlaws, hillbilly blood, Smoky Mountain money, filthy riches. All of these shows, and people went nuts over these. I started getting 2 to 3 calls a week. People wanting to know what ginseng was, wanting to know if they could plant it, wanting to know if they had it on their property. I had folks, vacation homers from Point St. Lucie bringing me bags of Jack in the Pulpit, wondering if they had struck it rich. Like, there were so many people that were watching these shows and getting just this awful, there was just poor perception of it. So, and the drawback is during that period of time, you had a lot of people who had never dug ginseng or any mountain medicinal roots in their lives. All of a sudden taking interest. They were going into the woods, they were digging plants that were too young, they were digging them in properly so the roots were worthless when they did bring them in. They didn't know how to dry them, they didn't respect the land. And the Cherokee actually say, and I think I mentioned this in the book or the prologue, that the Cherokee believe that if you don't respect the woods, you can't find ginseng. Ginseng will hide from you. You can go into woods where ginseng is prolific, and if you're not in tune with the forest and respect the forest, you won't be able to find it. So that happened, but I can say the one silver lining of these shows coming out and so much popularity being generated in it is it sort of created a renaissance of interest in conserving the plant as well. So as bad as those shows were, and as much as the plant was over-harvested for the following 3 years after that, that's when I started doing workshops. And the very first workshop that I did on how to plant wild simulated ginseng, I bought a little bit of seed, and I was like, I did it in December. I thought there'd be 10 or 12 people show up. I had 45. I had to cut off registration at 45. because there was so much interest in it. So the following fall, I had another one, and there were 120 people. I had 4 different workshops with 120 people. I started having these every fall because, again, there's folks that want to replant it to capture a piece of their family heritage or culture. They've moved back here, they have some property, or they've lived here forever, but they remember grandma and great granddaddy digging ginseng, and they want a little piece of that. And I have some folks who are planting it at a little larger scale. They'd like to add some value to their underutilized forest lands, and that's sort of in the book, the characters, Danny and Tucker. I think Tucker goes into it partially for profit, mainly for profit, some passion there, and Danny's character is all passion. You just know that's he has really no interest whatsoever, or maybe not whatsoever, but his interest is in the preservation of the mountains and the beauty, which happens to have some economic value. So it's been really interesting to see how I did 5 workshops this fall. I did one in Watauga and in the surrounding counties, and had anywhere from 5. I think the smallest we had 5 because it wasn't advertised that much, but I had 25 at all the others. So folks are still interested in it. And another part of the story, and this is a real part of the story, the poaching of ginseng, the theft of ginseng is still very alive and well. Every year, the sheriff's department, they'll call me to say, hey, we got somebody caught poaching or theft of ginseng. What's the season? This is what they had. So I was I had to be an expert witness in a case this fall that ended up being settled. And the reason I blacked out this person's face is because the first time I did a talk and showed that slide, it was here at the Watauga Ag Office. A close relative of the person was in the audience, so it's still a problem. This is from Yancey County. This is on Tim Sweeney's land. I don't know if you know Tim Sweeney is now the largest private landowner in North Carolina. He's the software development. If you have kids or grandkids that play Fortnite, the guy who developed the game Fortnite, that company, he's actually a big conservation-minded philanthropist now, and has been buying up land, and he's put cameras across his land. But you can see these folks are walking through the woods. They know that there's camera. You can see the bandanas on their faces. So they know that there's cameras in the woods, and they're still walking through looking for ginseng. When you can sneak onto someone's land and walk out of that land with a backpack full of $3,000 to $4,000 worth of crop, you really can't do that with Christmas trees.
Right.
You got to be a little sneakier to get that, But ginseng, because of that, is a very hush-hush trade. Like I said, it's not an illegal trade. There's not a black market, but it is sort of a hush-hush industry because of the threat of theft. And I think I mentioned that or allude to that in the book. One of the character Rat in the novel is sort of the quintessential ginseng poacher. Just a few more pictures, again, emphasizing how this is. I put this up here, starting even in August. Well, throughout the year, really as soon as spring starts, there's several ginseng Facebook interest groups on Facebook. If you search for ginseng diggers, American Ginseng and Granny is another one. There's Wild Ginseng Diggers and Dealers. These sites have 30 to 50,000 members, and everyone posts their pictures while they're scouting. So their folks will go out in early to midsummer looking for ginseng to then come back to in September, and then come September, it's like a fishing magazine photo book. People are showing what they found, and these are all over Facebook come September. If you're really interested in learning more about ginseng from the nonfiction end, I always throw this in here. I showed you the Ginseng Diggers book. It just came out. I provide the growing and marketing ginseng golden seal and other woodland medicinals to folks who come to the workshops. It's available on Amazon. About half the book is devoted to how to grow, or what's about ginseng, about marketing, how to grow it, doing an enterprise budget for starting a ginseng plantation, and then the other half of the book is on the other forest medicinal plants that also have some economic value. Ginseng, the divine root, is a great combination of of history of the plant from ancient China all the way through today, and how the market works. And he visits the retail shops in Hong Kong to talk to the shop owners and to interact with the consumers and see which ginseng's best. We're in one of the areas, Western North Carolina ginseng is really, we're only behind Catskill Mountain ginseng as far as total value of most value of ginseng. Catskill ginseng brings the highest price. It's probably bringing $900 a pound, whereas Western North Carolina ginseng's bringing in around $850. You go into Tennessee, it's selling for about $700. Eastern Kentucky, $700 to $750. So our ginseng is considered superior based on the way it looks. Wild ginseng is sold 100% on the way it looks. It's sold on the basis of the color of the soil that is rubbed into the root, where it comes from. And the really good ginseng diggers can tell you which mountain the dang ginseng. I was in a dealer's office one time. Tony Hayes, who passed away about 2 years ago, ran Ridge Runner Trading Company. He had worked with Wilcox. He had worked with Low Fern Herb, started Low Fern Herb in Wilkes. And this fellow brings in, two fellows were in line to bring in their ginseng. The first one, the guy opens it up and he starts looking through it, and he's like, "You got this from Pond Mountain, didn't you?" And the guy was like, "I sure did." And the next guy comes up and he's like, "Oh, this is some of that red dirt Wilkes County ginseng." The guy was like, "Yeah, it is." And there's some tricks, and I'll finish up here with just a trick. So, ginseng is valued by the way it looks, and especially the color of the soil. The blacker the soil, the better. And we have these really nice hollers of amphibolite. These amphibolite hollers. I'm sure y'all been hiking, or maybe where you live. You dig into some mountain soil, and it's almost jet black, and you cannot see little flakes of mica that are in that soil. Well, the smart diggers will, if they find a good patch of soil like that, they'll go up a hollow with a 5-gallon bucket and bring down that bucket to their own house for the ginseng that they dug wherever. They'll put a little water in that dark black soil and dump their roots in there and let them sit there a couple days. And when they take them out, they'll take their thumb and smear that black dirt with those mica chips into those roots, so that when they dry and those roots go under the counter lights in a Hong Kong market, the ginseng glistens. It catches the eye of the consumers as they walk by. So there's a lot that goes into it. It's a fascinating, like I said, any of these books, especially the Divine Root, that one really, that's another sort of inspiration for writing sort of the fiction in, because I thought it really told the reality, but we really needed kind of a story to go along with it. But that's sort of the formal part of my talk. Like I said, I don't talk a huge amount about the book. I've gone to these book talks before, and my eyes roll back when an author starts reading like 2, 3, or 4 pages. Surely y'all don't want that. You've got the book. You've heard me talk for an hour now. But do y'all have any questions about the book, the characters? I like to ask folks, just for my own sort of selfish, egotistical reasons, like who was your favorite character and why?
I like Pawpaw.
You like Pawpaw?
Yeah.
There were lots of people that were really pissed at me when what happened to him happened to him. For those of you who hadn't read the book.
That's what I told her the other day. I was sad.
I was really sad.
Yeah.
It's a story.
It's just something with you. But what's the situation with the deer? Because we planted in the yard under your direction, and I don't know whether we have any or not.
Deer love ginseng.
So
Everything in the woods we like, but the good thing, the one good thing. And in the presentation that I do, in the more technical presentation, I do talk about the predators. But deer love it. They graze the tops off of it.
Yeah.
And due to how prolific deer are right now, there's a real concern that ginseng isn't threatened as much from overharvest as it is from deer, because deer are eating the tops.
Yeah.
The roots stay fine. The plant continues to grow, but it's removing the capability of that plant to produce seeds. At least the poacher, even some of the thieves that I know, thieves and poachers that I know, they still replant the berries. And the ginseng berries and seed do not survive through the gut of a deer or a turkey. Turkey will eat seed and berries as well. The worst pest of ginseng, though, is voles. I hate those bastards more than any other animal in the woods, because I do grow some myself, and voles are the absolute worst plague because they eat the root without you knowing it. You really don't know that they're there until you see your plant the top starting to fall over. They're awful. There's ways to mitigate it, but it's those are problems. So yeah, one thing about the books really quickly. So someone was saying, I really like there's new. I don't know if you've heard the term hillbilly noir. The books from Appalachia that have sort of a dark twist to it, and I had somebody who asked me, he's like, "Well, is your book hillbilly noir?" And I was like, "Well, it's really not noir." I was like, but it's got the the 4 M's. You got meth, moonshine, murder, and mayhem. Wait, there's another M. We got it somewhere. But it's got the 4 M's.
Shall we draw for the drawing?
Sure.
Draw like
Tell them what they'll win, Betty.
Oh, yes, well, we'll see. Get your voice, get your little ticket. There's a couple things I wanted to, I went out to the High Country Press the other day because in October and November of 2020, Ken Catchy did a wonderful article on Jim and the book. And so I went out and I said,
You actually found some of those?
I found 4. That's it.
Wow.
So I said, can I have those 4? He said, well, no. He said, I think this is all I got. And I said, well, I've got 3. I had 3 at home. But I said, he said, you can have 1. And he said, I think there are others, but they're in a storage shed. You want to go look for them? And I went, no. So anyway, if you did not, in 2020, get your copy of that. Oh, there's your little team.
Thank you, team.
Yeah. If you didn't see this wonderful article, you please feel free to take it. Okay. But these are collect. Do you have one?
I have a couple.
What's
Okay.
the date on that?
October, November 2020.
They have it online, I think. I think you can look.
But it's a wonderful article. It's just great. Okay.
Like I said, this is the first talk where we've had door prizes.
Well,
Which I should have had before since I provided the door prize.
I know. It's what except I.
Oh, you did?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, Okay. All right. It's completely.
So what, did you tell them what else is available for them? So actually, I have, this is the last
Well, should we do those?
2 little packets of seed. This is 1 ounce of ginseng seed. These are the last 2 ounces, like all of the workshops tapped me out, so.
So, maybe if you draw your card, you may not have a yard that would do it. You may not want it, because we also have.
They can choose.
They can choose. This is something. When did they do these?
2019. Oh, at the last Farm City. That was the last time we
This is a little tin of ginseng tea.
made from the leaves,
It's made from the leaves.
from
So-
tops that came from
So
plants
maybe we
from
should do
here.
that one first. All right, Mary, you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I don't have my glasses on. Here, you have to read. Are these just?
These are 1.5.
Oh, no,
It's
that's-
947.
That's what you
That's
need.
the number.
The last, this is 948.
That's me.
Oh, wonderful. You got the tea. Wonderful. Right. And then-
946.
Yep, sorry, Bon. It's not a bingo for you. That's what you want me for.
So we got what, 2 copies of the book and then 2 bags of seed.
Right, so this is 949.
That's me.
Would you like the seed or the book?
I think I'm
Okay, all right. If you can't use the seed, you don't want you to take it. Okay. All right. Are you ready? Here's 953.
Similar?
Oh, wonderful!
Hey,
Which-
Cedar book.
Which do you want, seed or book? Book.
No.
You do.
I've got all those companion plants, so let me ask an expert on our property. Should I go for this?
You already have the book?
No, I will buy the book.
Oh, well, then definitely the seed.
You plan, you have those companion
And how much
plants.
can I sell these?
Those are about $10 an ounce is what Jesse goes for. It's around $150 a pound. Good seed is about $150 a pound.
Okay, so now I have to buy some of those books too.
You're right.
Yeah.
Well, you can call me, I can show you how to plant. All you need is a rake. A rake is the only thing.
You're on speed dial on my phone for information about ticks.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, here is 947.
Mary, that's me. I'll take the book.
Okay.
You live in rhododendron patch, they wouldn't, ginseng wouldn't do well, yeah.
And I'm sure that the author would be happy to sign.
Yeah, I was gonna buy it too. Thank you.
Okay, what, and then.
The last bag of seed, that's the.
it. 954.
Oh,
wonderful. Yeah, can you use the seed?
Does anybody else think they would want to see that?
Yeah, can you use it?
Yeah, because I.
divide the bag.
Yeah, you can divide the bag, I got it.
Another.
We can split it up if somebody
We
wants
have a
it.
consolation prize for you.
Do you have this, because you might, because she's the librarian in
Let's
charge of all the wonderful.
split it, and I'll take a little bit, and I'll.
Here, put some, in this is an empty vial. Some in here.
All right, yes, sir. I know that you have 4 sticks, right? So I should pull that, is that what you're saying? No, I'm sorry. No, it's okay, baby.
Now, this can't be like middle school sports where everybody gets a trophy, right?
No.
Okay, all right. I didn't know how many I need to divide this.
955.
Yes.
Yes.
That's why I said it, because I had.
Oh,
the intuition.
wonderful. That's great. So you're.
Yes, the
That's
seed.
fantastic.
That's great.
Yes, let's split.
Okay, good.
Yes.
He's fixing
Oh,
that,
I'll
right?
give you this
Nah,
one.
that, you can put that in your
So
bedroom.
we're being
Yeah,
honest.
right.
I do have a question though for
Yeah.
you, and that's. And do you know what it is?
Well, the licenses, you don't have to have a license to dig. Digging does not, to hunt ginseng, you don't need a license. All you have to have is permission to be on land that you're on. But you have folks, like I said, the folks that are now they're cash poor and land poor. They don't have their own land to hunt it on. So they go to the areas where their grandfather used to take it. Or into gated communities where they know ginseng grows really well. I know one guy told me he was digging ginseng under someone's deck while the family was having dinner upstairs.
But that's what I was thinking the whole time, that conflict. You've got this wonderful history of generations of people, of digging up ginseng, of having it be provisional for their income, and the love of the family and community to enjoy it, and enjoy the beauty around here. And then you have groups coming in that are arresting people for doing something that seems so natural. So forgive me, I'm part American Indian, so I think I'm coming from that.
I feel the same
I
way.
don't-
Poaching is different than theft. So there's when people are intentionally planting and they're on their own property to grow it as a crop, that's theft. Now, poaching is going on someone else's space, trespassing and taking something while you're trespassing. And me personally, 50% of the land parcels here in the county are non-resident landowners. When someone is on land that nobody is on to begin with, and they're getting something. I don't have an ethical moral dilemma really isn't there on that end. But it is for some folks. It is for folks who come. There are folks that would not grant anybody permission to go extract something from their property. Whereas in the past, if you need, like I said, if you needed a couple of squirrels or something, needed to harvest some chestnuts to make some chestnut bread or to consume. It was never an issue there. That boils down to the whole tragedy of the commons that Harlan wrote about in the 50s.
Given how long it takes to ginseng in our relatively harsh climate, and the number of people who'd like to dig it for profit, is it a sustainable crop?
Absolutely.
And how so? I mean, it seems like if I have 2 acres and there's some ginseng on it, it seems like a couple guys can come in and wipe it out in a season.
Oh, yes, in that case, yes. But as far as overall, I think there is a lot more ginseng that has been planted and reestablished in the last 10 years than at any point in history. But you know, the pressures of over-harvesting, the pressures of genetics, or the argument of genetics. Most of the seed that is being purchased and planted, and the seed that y'all have, comes from purposefully managed ginseng farms. That comes from the same seed source again and again and again. So, and this is the issue. This is why, and this is when it confounds me that when someone from the Forest Service or the Park Service says, well, you can't plant, you're not allowed to plant seed or to plant on national forest land or national park land, because of the biologists, the conservation biologists who work there will say that it's, well, we don't want to pollute the native environment from outside genetics. I was like, well, how about the trout?
Yeah.
You're raising fingerlings in these artificial environments and releasing them into our trout streams. Why can't you take the ginseng seed, which is still prolific? Like, there's no chance of ginseng going extinct. It will be. It's becoming increasingly rare in the wild. But I think the agency personnel, if they said you could plant ginseng on good Forest Service or Park Service land, I could round up 100 volunteers that would plant 1,000 pounds of seed in a weekend in the forest. There's that much interest in it. But
on behalf of the National Park Service, they are making a concerted effort to remove non-native trout from major national parks.
Oh, they are,
including Great Smokies. A lot of that was done in the 20s and 30s and even earlier, as soon as there were railroads to move trout fingerlings. And they've realized what a mistake it was.
Mm-hmm.
So they're trying to trim Great Smoky Mountain National Park just to the original wild brook trout.
Good.
gotcha.
So I can kind of see the viewpoint of the federal land agencies,
Mhm.
that they wouldn't want to bring in different strains, because once you've polluted that strain, you can't undo it.
Sure.
You know.
But the native strains, I'm afraid, are so small and isolated and almost extirpated now that we're not going to, or it'll be so rare that it's not that even that genetics is rare. And coming from the production agriculture side of things, I put on my extension cap and I've seen the research. There's genetic diversity within the beds of the cultivated Wisconsin stuff. You know, the seed that we used to initially start the commercial industry were wild sourced from Canada, Michigan. I mean, the original seed was wild, and yes, it has been now cultured and babied in beds in 4-year increments for the last 100 years. But and some of your growers who are growing wild simulated ginseng here or growing it out in beds, they'll tell you there's sort of an idea out there that that ginseng does not live as long as the wild plants do, because it's for generations it's only grown for 4 or 5 years. And so they'll harvest their cultivated ginseng at around the 8 to 10 year mark to ensure that they get it.
So.
No, thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Happy to sit around here. Thank you.
I just want to make an announcement because you all love this area so much. On Monday, the 14th, okay, that's Monday. Okay, this is Thursday. On Monday the 14th, the Appalachian Theater downtown is celebrating its 84th birthday. And we're having a birthday party. It's open to the public from 5:30 to 7:30. There will be cake, because as Julia Child says, it's not a party without cake, it's just a meeting. Right? And so we're having a party. There will be face painting, and balloons and a photo booth and all kinds of other things. But the thing that I'm most excited about is we have a loop of 1938 newsreels, cartoons that were shown in 1938. And in fact, it's not enough, Mary. We're having a 1939 song
Oh,
Yes.
With Guy Madison.
No,
Oh, with the one.
This is even more.
Oh, my
Yes,
God.
yes.
I used to
So-
go Russia.
Yeah, so please, it's, as I say, it's a community birthday party celebration, it's wonderful. It only took us 10 years to rehab it and 10 million dollars, so please come and enjoy the birthday party. It's all part of Boone celebrating its 150th.
And your coat is
Oh, thank
absolutely
you.
wonderful.
Thank
I
you.
love it.
Thought that no less. Okay,
Thank
thank you so much.
Thank
This
you.
is, we have one more book in series.
Thanks, Monica.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Are you going to the,
Anybody?
party?
Yes.